The Archetypes. Chasing rabbits. We'd never celebrated Lunar New Year before. I suppose we never had a reason to. After all, none of us are of Chinese descent. But there's something about it that has always captivated me. The colours, the story, the symbols. It's all so beautiful. So when the whole family, except Estelle the elf, if she's even counted, were invited round Adelaide's for dinner, I was ecstatic. We all were. Joey is in the middle of trying to pick out the right shirt. He's pacing around the room shirtless, frustration written all over his face. His floofy hair is unkempt and dancing every which way. I tell him he needs to pick soon, because we don't want to be late. I just need to decide on a colour. He places his hands down on the bed, sandwiching 3 shirts laid out neatly folded, 1 red, 1 gold, and 1 green. And what are you wearing? He looks over at me. I tell him I'll be wearing what I'm wearing now. He bows his head with a sigh and runs one of his hands through his fringe to keep it out of his eyes. You can't wear that. It's bad luck to wear black today. And I hope you don't intend on showering. It will wash off all the luck. I walk over, stand behind him and place my hands on his waist, placing my chin on his shoulder. What are you doing? His breath becomes heavier. I tell him if he wants me to take it off, he'll have to do it for me. His cheeks turn bright red and he turns around facing me. You're a jerk, he says, grabbing the bottom of my shirt and lifting it up. I pull the rest off for him and laugh as I give him a kiss before heading over to my drawers to find another shirt. Do you actually own anything that isn't black? He calls over to me. I turn with a hand on my chest, saying how insulted I am, then pull out a red button-up shirt and say, Ta-da! He laughs and shakes his head as he picks up his red shirt. Well, if you're going to wear that, we might as well match. I can't stop staring at him. As he goes to put his shirt on, he looks over to me with a face redder than tomato. What? He asks. What are you staring at? I tell him I'm admiring the view, and walk back over to him, place my fingers under his chin, and tilt his head up so he's looking up at me. Charles, what are you doing? I lean down and kiss him slowly. He places a hand on my chest to steady himself. I pull away slowly and cup his face in my hand. I tell him how beautiful he is, and he clears his throat. Yes, well, thank you for that, but we need to get ready. I tell him we have time and push him down gently on the bed, standing over him. I thought you didn't want to do this. His belly is moving in and out as he pants, just a little with excitement. I tell him we don't have to go all the way, but I can't help it. He's just too beautiful. I can't restrain myself any longer. Chucky, we can't. We can't be late today of all days. It's bad luck. I smile and take a seat on the bed next to him, after pushing his folded shirts out the way. I tell him how sweet it is that he's making an effort for a holiday he doesn't celebrate. I have to, he says, looking up at the ceiling. I know what it's like to believe in something and then everything goes wrong. I lay down next to him and my cheek resting beside his. I cancelled my meeting with the rabbi. I push myself up onto my elbow and ask him why. I just can't commit to something I don't think I believe in anymore. I want to believe in it. I want to so badly, but I just don't. He pushes himself up with his opposite elbow and faces me. Celebrating Hanukkah with Bubby was great, but it felt so different to what I'm used to. And then when I come home, I found out Santa Claus is real. Not just that, but there's an elf living with us now. And all that, and the fairy we met, it really throws things into question. I remind him the fairy was just an archetype, and that Estelle and Santa Claus don't necessarily prove God doesn't exist. She wasn't an archetype. She told me herself in the wish realm. I remember everything that happened. I have nightmares about it, seeing my parents the way I did, feeling every cell in my body die. Do you know what that's like? I see his lip beginning to tremble and pull him close to me. I tell him I know exactly what that feels like. I felt the same way when I became a devil, and that he shouldn't cry because it's bad luck, which makes him smile. You did do some research. I kiss him on the forehead and tell him that of course I did, because it's important to him. Boys, we hear Mum yell outside the door. Are you ready? The taxi's here. I look down at myself and then at Joey and cuss under my breath. I shout back that we're still getting ready, and we'll make our own way to Adelaide's. Okay, Mum shouts through the door. Don't be too late. It's important we make a good impression for Zena's future in-laws. Mum! I hear Zena shout from downstairs. We won't, Mrs. Manigold. Joey responds to my mum as he abandons me on the bed. Okay, sweetheart, we'll see you there. Joey pulls his shirt on, much to my protest. He laughs as he picks up the other 2 shirts and takes them to the drawers, where he grabs mine and hands it over to me. I call him a meanie and he pokes his tongue out as I start buttoning up my shirt. I'll get him back for this later. It takes us 10 minutes to get ready, a ridiculous amount of time for doing up shirt buttons and tying laces, but Joey keeps fussing over everything. He doesn't want anything to go wrong, no matter how little it might be. It must be his way of trying to keep control of the situation. I spent most of the time staying out of his way. I don't want to cause any extra stress, but the longer he frets, the more time we lose. I decide to take drastic measures to ensure we're where we need to be on time. Whilst Joey is busy checking his pockets for the 15th time, I sneak downstairs. Master Charlemagne, how can I help you? Our resident elf asks before I even have the chance to speak. I ask her if there's any way for her to get us to Adelaide on time. I'm afraid not. That kind of magic would destroy your human body. I ask her about my other forms. Your devil form would be fine. It can withstand an incomprehensible amount of heat and pressure, but your doll form would shatter into like a bajillion pieces. And besides, you're still not taking Joey into consideration. You may get there, but he would combust. I ask if there is any other way. There is nothing I can do to help you. I'm sorry. She spins her chair around and sips her cocoa with a sly grin. I go to ask her what she's so happy about, but I'm interrupted by Joey showing up right behind me saying, Right, I'm ready to go, and Estelle goes back to whatever she was doing on her laptop. It's freezing when we step outside. I look at Joey wrapped up in his scarf, beanie and mittens and suddenly feel underdressed, until I remember all I have to do is splish my blood about to warm me up. It usually comes second nature, so I'm somewhat concerned I'd forgotten about my blood-bending ability, but I do have other things on my mind. I check my phone for the time and grab Joey's hand, trying to signal me to get a move on, but he doesn't seem to be in any rush. It dawns on me that he doesn't want to go to dinner. I want to ask him what's wrong, but for the second time in the space of 2 minutes he interrupts me. Bunny! It takes me a moment to comprehend what he just said, but sure enough, just outside the gate is sitting a dazzling white rabbit. I tell Joey it must have escaped from someone's garden, even though I don't recall any neighbours having any rabbits. I approach it cautiously, intending to pick it up, and I don't know. Knock on people's doors trying to figure out where it came from, but it hops away. I go to run after it, but I look back at Joey and remember we're already running late as it is. Joey shrugs, and within moments he's running past me, chasing after the rabbit. I yell for him to wait, but he's already round the corner. I rarely find myself out of breath. I can maintain my oxygen levels fairly well. It comes as a bonus to having lucid control over all aspects of my blood, but this running business is certainly tiring. I catch a glimpse of the rabbit running across the road and scream out for Joey to look where he's going. Before I know it, it's too late. Nobody gets out of the car that hit my boyfriend, who is lying unconscious on the ground. I look up to the window trying to see a face, anything to show me a human is behind the wheel, but instead all I see is an opaque darkness. I look down at Joey's lifeless body. There's no denying he's gone. Nobody could survive injuries like this. I subconsciously note the rabbit approaching us slowly as I fight back my tears. I told him it was bad luck to cry earlier, and he'd been proud of me for educating myself. I can't disappoint him now. Even if he is standing beyond the veil, my tears can wait, at least until tomorrow. The rabbit places its foot on top of my hand, and I look down into its deep golden eyes, mesmerised. It nuzzles into Joey's chest. From its fur, rain begins falling, as if it were a small fluffy rain cloud. Within moments he's completely gone, and absorbed into Joey's body. Joey sparks back to life by hacking the water out of his lungs. The water reforms back into the rabbit, who gives me a wink as it begins to run off again. That was a close call. Joey gets to his feet in perfect condition, as if nothing had happened. He looks into the window of the car that hit him. Watch where you're going, you jerk. But he stares absently into the car, as if he can see something I can't. He then shakes his head with a laugh, grabs my hand, and before I can respond, we're back giving chase to the rabbit, this time at the same pace. I look back to see the car drive off silently. I don't know how to process what just happened, but I know if anyone would have answers, it would be that rabbit. It could be an archetype, or it could be some fantastical creature like Estelle or the fairy. If what Joey said about her is true, wherever it is no ordinary bunny. and now I'm just as determined to catch it as Joey. It leads us across the whole town, down roads, past shops, through abandoned car parks, even through a couple of gardens. It takes a moment to pause in the allotment, having a little sniff of a lettuce, but when it remembers our presence, it continues speeding away. I can't pretend like I'm not enjoying it. In fact, I've never felt more alive. Chasing this rabbit feels freeing, like some sort of relief, a break from my own mind. I could see from Joey's face he's feeling the same. We run for what feels like an eternity and keep running until we lose sight of the rabbit on a random street. There you are! Zena hurries out of the closest house. I thought you were going to be late. You're just in time. My brain takes a moment to register where we are. We're outside Adelaide's. I check my phone and see we're early. The rabbit brought us here just in the nick of time. I ask Joey if he's ready to go in, and he nods with a smile before we head towards the door. He goes in ahead of me as I look back to see the rabbit waving me goodbye. I wave back with a laugh, acknowledging just how ridiculous the situation is. When I turn to head in, Zena stands in my way. Are you okay? She asks. I saw everything. Is Joey okay? I nod, certain that he is. What in the name of Circe happened? I scratch my head trying to think of an explanation, but I can't properly come up with one. I explain that I don't know for sure, but whatever happened, I wouldn't be surprised if a certain elf was behind it all. Zena laughs as she invites me in. We head into the dining room where I see Adelaide's mum dishing up more food than I'd ever seen in my life. My stomach growls with excitement. I smile at Joey as he motions for me to join him, and I smile at all the food. All that running has really worked out my appetite.